So this is where history was made.
Ekku.
Dil-ġimgħa f'episodju speċjali ta' Timestock qed niżvelaw skoperta xjentifika ġdida li se tbiddel l-istorja ta' Malta.
Meta bdejtu tiġbru dawn l-għada u bdejtu tindunaw bil-mod il-mod?
Jina ċempiltlu. Għatlu, aħjar tpoġġi bil-qeda.
B'dak li sabu skoprew li l-istorja ta' Malta hija mill-inqas 1000 sena eqdem milli konna naħsbu.
Kodba jridu jiġu revive.
Iva, qed significant, però dik ix-xjenza li
Skoprew li għal kuntrarju ta' kif tallimna l-iskola u kif kienu jaħsbu xjentisti madwar id-dinja, l-ewwel nies li ġew Malta ma kinux bdiewa imma kienu nies aktar primittivi u kellhom ħiliet straordinarji li sissa ma konniex nafu bihom.
I mean, this is a future UN World Heritage Site għalija. Preserving a story of European Mediterranean history that we didn't know about.
U b'mod esklusiv, Timestock niżel ma' xjentisti flar fejn saret l-iskoperta u daħal magħhom fil-laboratorji fejn saru l-istudji u ra il-fdalijiet li se jbidlu l-istorja ta' Malta. U b'mod esklusiv, illum qed nippubblikaw l-ewwel filmati.
Profs Eleanor Scerri, Profs Vella, grazzi ħafna tal-li poġġejtu magħna għal dan il-podcast. Intom iż-żewġ xjentisti illi qed tmexxu dan it-tim ta' xjentisti oħrajn Maltin u barranin biex għamiltu din l-iskoperta. Għall-ewwel darba issa nafu li f'Malta kien hawn nies li huma mill-eqdem hunter gatherers kif beda l-bniedem.
Eżatt. At least 1,000 years before the arrival of the first farmers.
Intom irnexxilkom tiskop. This pushes history back kemm?
Minimum a millennium. Minimum.
1,000 years. 1,000 years.
Yes.
Ekku. Iva.
Changes the history of the Mediterranean.
Ekku.
Yeah.
L-ewwel bnedmin fid-dinja tfaċċaw 300,000 sena ilu ġol Afrika. Dawn kienu hunter-gatherers ngħidulhom, jiġifieri kienu jieklu billi jikkaċċjaw l-annimali u jiġbru li kelli jsibu l-hawn u l-hemm. Ma kellhomx eliji, raba jew irtsietzed bl-annimali, minflok kienu dejjem iħufu minn post għal ieħor fi gruppi żgħar. Jikkaċċjaw l-annimali li jaraw u jiġbru xi ikel ieħor u jikluh. Il-laħam ġieli kienu jsajruh bin-nar. U għal mijiet ta' eluf ta' snin, il-bniedem hekk kien jiekol u jgħix. Xi 50,000 sena ilu, il-bnedmin telqu mill-Afrika u bdew jinfirxu mad-dinja, imma baqgħu hunter-gatherers jew kif ngħidulhom bil-Malti kaċċaturi u ġabbara. Sa issa konna naħsbu li l-ewwel darba li n-nies ġew Malta 7,500 sena ilu u li kienu bdiewa diġà mhux hunter-gatherers. Sissa hekk konna naħsbu. L-iskola hekk għalmuna u fil-mużewijiet hekk hemm miktub. L-istorja taċ-ċiviltà umana f'Malta kienet tieqaf hemm. L-iskoperta tal-lum tbiddel kollox.
Aħna qatt ma konna nafu li Malta kien hawn il-hunter-gatherers.
Le, qatt. U daw in-nies kienu.
Issa ħansiru.
Le, eżatt. These are the last survivors of the Ice Age.
Dawn in-nies.
Ekku. Tal-aħħar Ice Age, ekku.
Għall-ewwel meta bdejna nħaffru bdejna nsiba f'dallijiet tas-soltu. Nsibu Bronze Age, Temple Period, Neolitiku, imma mbagħad kompla l-arkeoloġija, imma ma kienx hemm fuħħar u ma kienux hemm annimali domestiċi bħal baqar, naċ u l-affarijiet tippretendi li jkunu ma'
Dawk li dejjem jinstaqu soltu.
Iva.
Eżatt, imma bdejna nsibu ċrif.
Bdejtu tħaffru aktar l-isfel
Iva.
u bdejtu ssibu ċrif.
Iċ-ċrif li donnom kienu cooked in a fire. Mbagħad bdejna nsibu stone tools. U mbagħad bdejna nsibu wkoll il-fireplaces.
Ġifieri dallura xturik meta ssiba dat tip ta' Adam tgħid mela dawn kienu jikkaċċjaw jew mhux
Iva.
Ekku.
Iva.
u jekk kienu jikkaċċjaw allura.
Qed jaqbduhom dawn kaċċaturi ġabbara, hunter gatherers, tiġbor u tikkaċċa dak li tipprovdi l-art u dak li jipprovdi il-baħar. U kif qalet Eleanor, maħniex insibu l-fuħħar, maħniex qegħdin insibu dak li normalment ikun assoċjat ma' ekosistema fejn hemm il-bidwi.
Konna nafu li kien hemm pereżempju ċrif f'Malta, ma qatt ma sabu mal-bniedem. Meta nafu li mhux vera.
Għax issa sibtu għadam ta' annimali msajrin.
Ekku.
Mela da jfisser li sajruhom in-nies.
Ekku.
Mela l-ewwel nies li ġew Malta ma kienux bdiewa fil-verità, kienu iktar qabel. Daw għal-post sejrin fejn hemm l-ar issa.
Siti jataw.
Di.
Ġifiri kważi qasjiter.
Ġili dan nies probabbilment kienu jkunu jduru hawnhekk fejn qegħdin aħna mhux hekk.
Ekku.
Iduru dejlin u ħerġin mill-aru.
Sa jider tajjeb minna.
Ovvjament ngħidu l-arba.
Dan hu.
Technically it's a dough line. A dough line is a collapsed cave. Ġifieri darba kien hemm mistaqafaw u n-nies hawnhekk kienu
Għawek aħna skavajna fil-
Għaw taħt.
Iva.
għaw taħt.
Mela, aħna qed nitkellmu di ir-roqa. 5 meters by 5 meters kemm hi?
5 meters.
U kif iddeċidejtu li hawn u mhux hemmhekk jew hemm isfel?
Mela hawnhekk għandek rock shelter, ġifieri tipproteġik mill-northwesterly wind.
Okay.
U koll hemm isfel hemm ħafna ilma.
Okay. Umdu.
Umdu ħafna, it's not pleasant.
Iġifieri intom tgħidu isma' hawnhekk probabbilment hawnhekk kienu joqogħdu n-nies.
Eżatt.
U mbagħad kemm kellkom tinżlu l-isfel sakemm sibtu dawn. L-għadam ta' ċrif u hekk.
Aħna nżilna xi 40 centimeters meta bdejna nsibu affarijiet.
Daqshekk kisu.
U imma daw il-ġebel li qed taraw ħafna minnhom kienu ġol ħamrija. U għax kien hemm perjodu ta' rockfall hawnhekk. U d-depożiti meżolitiċi kienu taħtom. Allura l-bdew li kienet jaħdmu sabu daqskemm sabu ġebel. Issa ma tawx każ dil-parti.
Ma interessawx ruħhom
Di
di.
taħdat f'post fejn hemm il-ġebel għax huwa diffiċli.
Allura ġiet preservata.
Allura ġiet preservata.
Eżatt.
Ekku. Ġiet preservata.
Mela hekk għandna l-istor tal-affarijiet kollha li sibna l-lafnija.
Okay.
Hawnhekk għandna ġifieri l-fdalijiet kollha.
Dawn kollha.
Dawn kollha u wkoll kampjuni
Ġbartu
tal-ħamrija.
affarijiet.
Ekku.
Iva, il-ħamrija tas-sid ġibnija kollha hawnhekk.
Kollha.
Din il-ħamrija kollha u ġofija sibtuhom
Umbat,
dal-affarijiet.
iva. Umbat nixbru l-materjal organiku kollu jinġabar, jiġi separat skont il-klassi ta' materjal, jekkux adam, jekkux biċċiet ta' faħam, charcoal, etc. Biex umbat jiġi studjat kollox skont il-klassi mill-speċjalist. Ħadna samples u dawn is-samples tal-materjal organiku intbagħat barra għad-datazzjoni. U hija d-datazzjoni meta ġew lura dawn id-dates illi indunajna illi there is what is convergence of evidence. Ħadna iktar samples, ma nafx kemm il-sample batna barra biex inkunu ċerti fuq li ċerti li nistgħu ngħidu illi dak li sibna huwa groundbreaking.
Meta bdejtu tiġbru dawn l-għada u bdejtu tindunaw bil-mod il-mod. Illa di skoperta. Xi bdejtu tħossu?
Jiena ċempiltlu. Għatlu, I tpoġġi bil-qeda. To put bil-qeda jgħid what I have the results of the dating.
Għax id-datazzjoni għal-iktar.
Samples barra u ġewlu.
Eżatt, weta ġew lura.
Għalulkom dawn.
L-ewwel ċempiltlu għatlu I have the results, poġġi bil-qeda x'mhux ta' temmen.
U xorta tibqa' b'dubji serji.
Sejtu dak il.
Xokk kbir, kważi laqqas inti ma temmen.
U dejjem tħaffru tiġbru, dejjem tibatu barra u dejjem kull darba jgħidulkom dawn 8000 sena għandhom.
Yes. And as old as 9,000.
Jista' jkun
Jista' jkun 9,000, yes.
Mario, thank you very much for doing this. So you are two of the scientists who actively worked on this discovery. What are we seeing here? Because I only see bones and rocks.
So box and rocks. These are the waste of the diet of humans.
Okay.
This is all the garbage that was discarded by the inhabitants of Lacnia.
This is the garbage.
Yes.
What is it? Okay, so what did they throw away?
So when we talk about hunter-gatherers, we talk about people whose economy was based on hunting and gathering. So at that time, around 8,500 years ago, Malta was inhabited by tiny deers. So the main tiny deers, yeah, pygmy deer, they were endemic to the Maltese island, and humans were hunting them.
They were hunting them and eating them.
and eating them. That's why I thought about garbage, because humans were living there, they were cooking, they were doing their stuff, and what we have here are the evidence of those human activities. This is a tibia, right tibia is a long bone, and if you can see,
That's a bone from the leg
from the leg
of a deer.
of a deer,
And that is a real bone.
a real bone
From the
almost
Maltese deer.
From the Maltese deer, exactly.
And this deer was cooked by these hunter-gatherers, eaten.
Eating.
We don't know if it's cooked, but eaten. And then this bone was discarded, was thrown away, was left there.
Exactly. And you will be wondering, how do we know they were hunted or eaten by humans? So here, for example, I don't know if you can see, again, a very tiny piece of a femur of a deer.
Okay, that's also a piece of bone.
Yeah, this is a bone.
The top part of a bone. Okay.
As you can see, it's burned. It's burned. So you have a human making fire, making hair.
So that's
inside
how
the
you
cave.
know they cooked them.
Yeah, they could part of the meat, but also they discard their bones inside the fire.
The fire. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, this bone is curved. The fracture is curved, which means the bone was breaking when it was fresh. It means someone got a hammer stone and broke the bone to access the marrow. The fat is stored inside the bone for nutritional purpose. A human.
Because an animal couldn't have done that.
Exactly. That's why we
know they were
humans
humans
here.
and not some other animal
Exactly.
that caught the deer or killed the deer to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Actually,
Because there's human intervention, you mean.
yeah, there's human intervention. This is fish. They were fishers too. They were they were fishing a lot of animals, and not only fish. What you have here are marine gastropods, and we have thousands of.
You found thousands of these.
Thousands.
So they ate these. They
Yeah.
ate these
They ate.
shells. Like
I mean, they didn't eat the shell. They ate
they eat the inside.
the inside, of course.
So humans had to gather them
Yeah.
from the sea
Mhm.
and bring them up to the
To
cave
the cave.
and eat them.
Based on the fauna that we know were living in Malta at that time, humans are the only ones who are able to gather and collect these edible gastropods from the sea.
It couldn't have been gathered by a fox.
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
Something that you can also see here is that we had been drilling the bones, in this case the tooth, for a stable isotope analysis.
Okay.
With that-
You did that.
No, I didn't do it.
You-
A colleague of mine.
Okay,
did.
but the researchers did that.
Yeah. So based on the stable isotope, that allow us to infer how the environment looked like. What we have seen is that Malta was dominated by an open landscape. There was some trees, more or less a climate which is very similar to modern day conditions. And you can know all of that just by looking at the chemical composition of the teeth.
But I think it's also interesting to point out, like, not only is this not farming, but this like use of marine food is really interesting, because one of the mysterious things, you know, the temple period, people didn't really eat any seafood, which is strange for a Mediterranean island. You know, the textbook people, you know, the Neolithic, the Bronze Age, it's all about land animals and growing wheat. But these Mesolithic people, we have like 10,000 of these sea snails.
10,000.
10,000. You know, like this fish, vertebrae, backbone, this is a big fish,
Exactly.
you know?
Big fish.
Big fish. So these people, they were like a very mixed diet. They have the deer and the land animals, but also this is totally new, this society using these like sea resources.
U l-ħaġa interessanti li ovvjament dawn in-nies tridu jiġu bil-baħar. Malta kienet diġà gżira, ġifieri dak ifisser li n-nies tridu jiġu bil-baħar.
Ġida l-hunter-gatherers kienu diġà skoprew mod kif jagħmlu xi tip ta' dajsa
Ekku.
li tajba biżejjed għal dak l-open water biex jivvjaġġaw kemm isqallija.
Għandek minimum 100 kilometers.
Xi 100 kilometri. U dik ukoll hija l-ewwel darba li fil-Mediterran hemm evidenza ta' crossing ta' 100 kilometru minn dawn il-hunter-gatherers. Kienet ma kienniex evidenza ċara li dan ġara fil-Mediterran.
U issa għadkom għaddejjin.
Għadna għaddejjin.
Għaddejjin. Storja titkompli.
L-istorja ħad kompli.
U ħanisiru nafu minn kienu daw in-nies għax ġej il-ġenetika wkoll.
X'ġifieri min kienu? Min kien? Min jista' jkun kien?
Ġifieri l-ancestry tagħhom, jekk tkur ġew mis-Soqalija, ġifieri. Aha,
U dawn kienu jidhru bħalna, ġifieri
no.
le kif kienu jidhru?
Skont il-ġenetika daw in-nies kellhom ġilda skur imma għajnihom ċari. Ġifieri blue green eyes and dark skin. Kompletament differenti millum, jiġifieri. L-ewwel bdina kienu differenti, they had dark eyes and paler skin. Il-kombinazzjoni li naraw għallum of pale eyes and pale skin ma kienx teżisti dawk iż-żminijiet.
What are we seeing here?
So what I study is the stone tools people used, right? So this is, the Stone Age, there's no metal, there's no pottery.
Okay.
And humans, we don't have claws, we don't have big teeth. So the way that early humans were able to survive was by making sharp-edged tools. These are some examples that we found at Latnia.
Those are from...
These are made by people 8,000 years ago.
So you think those are real tools?
Absolutely.
That they made?
Yeah.
And how do you know that?
Because they have some distinctive features. So you can see where there are like previous scars. So that's where they've removed previous flakes.
Okay.
And then there's a flat area called the striking platform. That's where it's been hit. And then there's a smooth surface and see the slight bulge. We call that the bulb of percussion. And this is like only happens when you get a strong force applied. So these are, very clearly made by these people as a way to produce.
It's clear that these are tools that they made.
Yeah.
And they use them.
Yeah. So they have these sharp edges, so for cutting meat from bone or shaping wood or scraping animal skins.
Okay.
I spent like 8 hours a day for 20 years thinking about this stuff. That's not normal, Like for most people, it's a piece of rock. But for a specialist, it's just very clear that this is made by humans.
To you, it's clear it's made by humans.
Yeah. But what's interesting, it's a very simple technology. At the same time, in North Africa, in Italy, people had much more complex technologies. So the question we're interested in is, why is it so simple? Is it because of the poor quality limestone, or is it because of how they're using them? If it's very simple to collect seashells or something like that, or is it because it's a small population who are cut off and, you need a big population to maintain complex ideas, or some combination of all of them. So that's something, we know people were there, they're making these tools, they're using these tools, but there's a lot of mysteries about why they're so simple,
Okay. So those are questions yet to be answered.
Absolutely, and the problem is trying to understand a whole society from one site is very challenging.
Yes.
It'd be like trying to understand modern Malta from like St. John's Cathedral.
Yes.
So what we need to try and do is find other sites and piece together.
So the work is just about to start.
Absolutely. This is a new chapter in understanding Maltese prehistory.
This is a new chapter.
This is decades of work. This is many students' dissertations to come. We've opened the first page, but there's generations of work.
Just the beginning.
Absolutely.
So this is where history was made.
Ekku. Yes. Ġimma wara ġimma.
How does it make you feel?
Oh, it feels good. Imma dejjem anka konna qegħdin ngħidu qabel huwa team spirit illi jinbena. U l-faċilità li biha tiddiskuti dak li qed tagħmel. ċajta ġieli ovvjament għax dan ħinijiet twal. Imma inti il-ħin kollu tiddiskuti dak li qed tagħmel u meta jkollok nies li huma speċjalisti li qed iġibu magħhom għarfien li huwa jakkumula bis-snin ta' esperjenza jaħdmu f'postijiet oħrajn, ikunu raw affarijiet bħalma tinsibu għaw postijiet oħrajn u meta ġib daw in-nies kollha f'daqqa għandek mixela esplosiva b'għajdu Taljani. F'Settembru erġa' hija u tara ngħaddi the real thing mbagħad.
Bat għandna l-kollegi, l-esperti ġej minn kull imkien, għandna mill-Awstralja, mill-Ġermanja, mill-Ingilterra,
Spanja.
mill-Spanja.
F'Malta iridu jinbidlu l-kodba tal-iskola.
Iva, irridu jiġu riveduti dik il-parti l-iktar parti bikrija tal-istorja tal-bniedem f'pajjiżna.
U għaliex din hija sinifikanti mhux għal Malta biss?
Għax aħna konna naħsbu li daw il-hunter-gatherers ma kinux kapaċi, ma kellhomx kapaċità li jagħmlu daw il-open water journeys. Iktar minn 50 kilometers ġifieri a journey you can do in a day. Ma konniex nasbu li kienu kapaċi, massa nafu żgur li kienu jagħmlu 14 hours by sea, 15 hours mill-inqas.
U jtfisser anka illi kollok tgħaddi żmien fil-baħar meta jkun idlam. Ma tistax biss tmur bil-baħar matul il-ġurnata, ma jkollok tgħaddi żmien bil-lejl li jfisser illi biex issib triqtek, mhux għax qed tara xi art, imma ħajkollok tuża l-istilel biex issib id-direzzjoni tajba. Anka minn dak il-punto di vista din hija groundbreaking. Iva.
Yes, it's astonishing li hunter-gatherers could do these journeys in dugout canoes, and it begs the question, where else did they go? And what connections existed across the Mediterranean world, and Malta is at the center of those connections.
Il-kurrikulum li nitalmu bih l-iskola jew inkella anki għaw l-università, normalment l-istorja tal-bniedem f'Malta tibda bil-Neolitiku. Demek. Issa ħajkonna namlu tweak, irdu nikkoreġu din il-biċċa mill-istorja ta'
Iridu nbidlu l-kodba
Iva,
tal-iskola.
ma l-lum il-ġurnata bit-teknoloġija, żguri li dal-podcast li ħaj riżulta minn din l-intervista jista' jeħu kulħadd.
Kodba jridu jiġu revised.
Iva, it is significant, però dik ix-xjenza li għada jekk isiru skoperti ġodda jkollna nibdlu. Għax daqqa waħda mbagħad tajt għamel għandi kollegi sqallija ma kienux qegħdin iħarsu lejn dan issa jibdew. Diġà nibdew il-kuntatti ma' kollegi oħrajn biex nerġgħu mmorru lura nstudjaw affarijiet li konna ġana fuqhom imma b'tekniċi ġodda jkun hemm effett inkredibbli.
Bażikament qabel l-istorja ta' Malta kienet konness mal-eruq tal-agrikoltura tal-bidja. Issa nafu li l-istorja ta' Malta hija konnessa mal-eruq tal-bniedem stess.
L-ewwel nies
tal-
li nafu li jeżistew fid-dinja kienu hunter-gatherers. U issa qed niskopru li Malta kien hawn minnhom.
I mean, this is a future UN World Heritage Site għalija.
Astra.
For sure, għax it's preserving a story of European Mediterranean history that we didn't know about.
Tinduna li l-istorja ta' għandha rilevanza għal kull min jistudja il-gżejjer fid-dinja. We are adding time depth to a story which is usually related to more recent time. We're extending that. And that is interesting and exciting.